Hello, my name is Daniel Lanzilotta, and I'm the guest host for Corinne's Picks. Tonight's guests are Suzanne Kachmar, Susan Stair, and Jolly Patel. Get ready for a great show tonight. Hello, I'm with Suzanne Kachmar, Susan Stair, and Jolly Patel. I'm going to introduce Suzanne Kachmar. It's been said you are a Bridgeport art lifer, a pioneer and leader in Bridgeport art community. She is the executive director of City Lights Gallery. Welcome.
Thank you.
And then we got our other guest, Susan Stair. You said you love the complexity of nature in your Autobahn video. You work with clay, tile, marble, and you did a video about bird watching in the boreal forest.
Thank you for having me, Daniel.
Thank you. And Jolly Patel, you work with the Human Impacts Institute as a community organizer, and we're going to start talking about our subject matter. I'd like to begin with you, Suzanne.
All right.
We're at a very critical time in the world of art and the environment and how artists operate within the environmental world. I'd like to begin with art and activism. What does that mean to you?
Well, I see the arts as a vehicle that can be leveraged to pique ideas, ask questions, get people to pause and think and look at things in a different way, and hopefully offer some new ideas. And sometimes even artists end up working with technologies that start in art form and then they become part of a solution or everyday life. So.
Okay. And Susan, what role does the artist play in furthering our understanding of the climate crisis? How do you see it?
Well, I see that the art is part of showing us ourselves, and we are the climate crisis. And so we need to look together, and I think we have missed the together part in all of this. So I do a lot of work with groups, with mural making, when I'm teaching with kids, and everyone puts their ideas together and then makes something. So I see art as the place where we can work together, rather than showcasing my work. I have it, but I always have workshops, and we need everyone to dig in and get a different concept of a community.
And Jolly, how do you see artists' responsibility in what they produce and their materials?
Well, within the materials themselves, I think what we see in today's day and age is a lot of, very extractive art that focuses on using new materials and creating things with brand new items versus what's already here. So I feel like there is a responsibility on the ethics side of art making and how to make sure you're amplifying your purpose by, showcasing climate art, especially to bring attention to issues, but doing it in a way that doesn't almost kind of go against what you believe in with, reusing materials, repurposing, and bringing those materials to life that are already nature-made, and making sure that that's, being appreciated and also something that can resonate with the communities that they're built in.
Do you find that there's some pushback from artists not to want to go in that direction and still use fossil fuel extractive materials?
Well, in my personal experience, I work more with the climate artists, and I see a very conscious-based decision-making where they are very intentional in the materials they used. Of course, there are many artists out there who believe that, well, if the vision of what they need requires that material, they may be hesitant or not willing to go that route. But I feel like the more and more artists within the climate space showcase what can be done and have this outside-the-box thinking, I think those ideas will be more widespread.
And the Human Impact Institute is a worldwide organization that gathers people for the climate awards. And how is that sent out into the world to gather these artists? How did they come to you?
Yes, so the Creative Climate Awards we host every year, and we have different themes around the themes of climate, and usually we focus on hope versus despair, where a lot of artists maybe are out there can feel more like gloom and doom. So we have an open call that's sent via social media, various artist platforms where open calls are happening, and we've have 50 plus 100 plus countries represented, and we have short films, art installations, sound installations, short and movies, as well as music, and as well as classic paintings that represent marginalized communities, frontline communities, and we try to amplify those voices through the artwork by bringing them to New York City.
That's very beautiful. I love that. Yeah. Susan, tell me more about your experience doing trash and fashion and how that affected you and the community at large that you participated in.
Well, trash and fashion both uses reused materials, reused clothing, which is one of the hugest parts of our trash, and then community people, and we've moved over from working with artists to create that to just working in a community. So we went into 2 communities this summer, and we're able to just take people sometimes off the street, sometimes out of their programs, who had no idea of this, were not models, did not think about fashion,
right.
And they came into piles of trash. We had seamstresses for them, and they created. So I'm very interested always in having the groups around create, because I think that's how we're going to move forward.
Right,
we're
right.
going to create together. And it was very exciting.
What I'm hearing from everyone so far is you've mentioned community, you've mentioned community, and you've mentioned community. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I hope to do with this show, and you as guests, is that you are exchanging information and creating your own community outside of what happens here, and that this does snowball, and that we do share this information, and so that therefore that we are sending this out into the universe, and so we are growing constantly, and this is going to become exponential. That's what we need for this to do. Up in Bridgeport, what you're working on a plastic show in November.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Yes, we are. Every year we do something called the Bridgeport Art Trail. So that happens in November, and I started that because we had a small gallery in Bridgeport, and over the years we've gone from a few art studio buildings to now there are 9, and it's a city of 150,000 people, so it's a pretty good concentration of art studios in that size space. So every year for the art trail, the gallery, City Lights Gallery, chooses a theme, a relevant theme that we think we need to address, because we get thousands of people that come to visit the studios from the New York, Connecticut area, and we feel we have a platform, we have an opportunity to share an idea. And just like you talked about, when you get people to work with a material that's an issue, and they do something fun and creative with it, I think they retain the message a little bit more, and they see a sense of hope. So we're doing a show which doesn't have the most positive name. It's called Becoming Plastic, and because we're consuming plastic, and I learned that from you, Daniel. You're the one who was telling me, and Daniel's going to be one of our lead artists in the show. So thank God, he's been the one that inspired us that we should make an art show about this. So. We're very grateful, and I'd love to have you guys get involved with us in that community
That's
concept.
what we're looking for.
Yes.
That makes me very happy.
Yeah.
In the line of things that you're doing, at what age do you encourage people to come and participate in what's happening?
All right, when they're out the womb. Just kidding. I think there's no real age limit. I feel like I've come across individuals who are maybe entering maybe they're starting out in their late 50s and not realizing that what's happening in the world. But then there's kids who were always raised that way from maybe when they were 2 or 3, because their parents are more conscious of what to do. So I feel like there's no way to put an age on it, but there's always lessons you could be teaching your own kids, more implementation in schools and the community. So it's hard to give you a number on what age.
But it sounds very upbeat and positive and excellent. Susan, did you have input from younger people when you were doing the trash and fashion?
We had every age, and we were constantly pulling people into these workshops and didn't know until our final show. We had a show with drummers and everyone was on a stage, and these were not models, but we all made movements together and had this for the community. So we ended up with an 80-year-old in a wheelchair and a 3-year-old and 35 people in between, and they changed quite a bit that night.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love hearing that. How can the arts community, artists, suppliers, galleries, move toward a more non-extractive, non-fossil fuel way of producing art? Anyone can jump in.
Wow. I feel like I need to go to confession on this one, you know, because I'm a
Well, let's put it
oil
this
painter.
way. To get to that point, we're not talking about a radical change of one's process and choices and what the outcome might be, but trying to get to behavior modification and then doing this switch over or using less fossil fuels is by baby steps, increments. And then if you're doing 100% of toxic materials, and 1 year you might go, oh, you know what, I'm going to aim for using 80% and 20% it'll be this, and then next year I'll move away and start trying to explore my materials. Well, how do you see it?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, because I think within, whether it's TV production or arts production.
TV production is pretty bad, Film.
It's
TV.
up there.
Yeah,
and,
it's bad.
And I think one of the ways that they can tackle it is I've seen within individuals I've met who work in those fields, and they care, but they see those around them don't. And sometimes there's a group that comes together and like, yeah, we want to support you. You care. How do we do that? And what they'll end up doing is like, well, when we are done with this material, we're going to all put it in this room, and then we're going to figure out afterward where to take it. And then that's where they run into the issue, is because they can't find the resources and places to go to actually dispose of it. So I feel like we need more places that are geared towards, being the hub where it's like, we will take in your materials, and being the place where people can turn to. I think right now it's a lot of people care, but they don't know where to go or who to actually connect with.
Well, we're going to figure that out as soon as we come back from our public announcement, and we'll be coming back to sharing more ideas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Corinne's Picks. I'm Daniel Lanzilotta. I'm guest host, and I'm here with my 3 guests, and we're talking about environmental issues and art and activism. I'm going to continue on with what Jolly was talking about, is about the supply chain and the stuff that's left over after a show, or just the materials that are questionable and not so safe. And you were saying that you were trying to figure out what to do with these materials.
Yeah, I was saying that there's more resources that can be in place for individuals to not only drop off, but also how can you transfer? There's also this reciprocity of, okay, well, I used this, but it's not completely waste yet. Maybe there's another artist out there, and creating these channels where people can, build more community and collaborate and cross-collaborate through the transfer.
Is there anything like that in Bridgeport at this time?
Not at this point that I know of, where we could have like some kind of a repository or whatever for people to. But we have talked about like art supply swaps and things like that as a possibility. But it would be a great idea to try to have something like that. Yeah.
And Susan, you're working with a lot of materials like clay and marble and natural materials. When you were doing trash and fashion, were you torn between this idea of this toxic material versus your natural materials? Were you ever concerned about, like, what am I really doing in that venue, and then going back and working with natural materials?
Well, everything was recycled. We didn't use anything that was new. We didn't use any glues. We were just sewing things together. So that one was fine. When I did the stage, that was made with a lot of plastics, but I decided instead of using any resins to hold those, I nailed them into the piece. And then I found a new solvent that you may want to try called Patel. It's an amazing European material that can make outdoor art and permanently fuse it. And I've started using that, and it's pretty exciting. And I'm starting to use seaweed
Nice.
as a base. I have to dry it out, of course, and wash it, and then it makes a wonderful base, and it's a nice sculpting material. And then the Patel makes it completely clean. So I'm working hard on that. I think we're all trying to work towards that.
Right, and how did you find that product?
I found it through the Sculpture magazine, actually years ago, and I've had some around. I wasn't sure how much I could trust it for a year outside in a sculpture, but it has a lot of different products that they use that are really wonderful, the Patel set, so it's exciting.
I'm very excited by that. That's good news to hear. And coming in November, Becoming Plastic, I love the title, a little frightening.
Yeah.
Are you going to have other aspects of the event around education and things of that nature?
Absolutely. In fact, we're counting on you, Daniel, and we're going to picking some brains over here as well.
We got them.
To bring it to the schools and also have some programs for youth, and also when families learn together, I think it's very important too.
Families and any group of community.
Yeah, and when they're just coming to have an enjoying day, and then they fall into something that teaches them, intrigued first of all by the art, but then have information for them that, we'll have QR codes so they can listen to people talking about it. But also, again, it's all in formulation, but we've done programs like this about good stewardship before. We did one about horseshoe crabs, because I had heard that there's some of the kids were going down to some of the estuaries, and they'd see these things that look kind of creepy, and they think they're something for them to destroy,
Little do they know, the blue blood.
And here they are, they're endangered species, keystone species, and so we would take kids out to learn about them with the local Norwalk Aquarium, but then we did an art project with it too, because we thought that would help reinforce the information, like you said. So we do really hope to do that, and we do have artists like Ayaba Ibo Mendingo who works.
Amazing.
Everything is recycled. However, it's not all environmental. He does go to the local store and gets the oops paint, and things like that. But he often is working with plastic or a tube or something like that from carpeting that he's found. So we already bring that into the schools, but definitely, and we do talk about reduce, reuse, and recycle for sure. So
have you ever done a reward system with the kids to fortify the verbal and the examples of what they're learning, and then have some kind of rewards program where they're going to get prizes or something that
what we've done with
utilize?
Kids is we haven't given them rewards. Again, our budgets get kind of small, but we do, we have tried to take them on field trips, and we brought a group to see. We actually had them learn about percussion, and they made percussion instruments with found objects, and we took them to see Stomp in New York.
Oh, that's good.
Yes.
That's nice.
So it was that kind of a thing that we've done with them in the past. And pizza parties, too.
Oh, that's always fun. That's good. As a community organizer with Human Impact Institute, what is your main concern, and what are you seeing in the community that concerns you the most?
Oh, that is a very important question, and so many ways to answer that. I think one thing that concerns me is the disconnect. I feel like community is really important, and being in New York City, sometimes it's very easy to see individuals who just aren't connected to their communities, or maybe they don't care because they just don't know or not aware. So that's why I really prioritize, working with the youth, those impacted from the most climate impacted communities, making sure that they understand who are these environmental justice groups that I'm surrounded by, what is the work they do, and making sure that they're grounded in the places they live and understand, the issues that are happening and what they can do themselves on an individual basis to tackle it, but not feel overwhelmed at the same time. Because there's also the climate anxiety that's happening around, feeling like all the responsibilities on you. So that's another reason why, it's important to have the community to be able to share those feelings as well.
Are you doing collaborations with other organizations that might be in the same sector, there might be some sort of competition, or is it everyone's aiming for the same focus and same vision?
Yeah, definitely the latter. I think one of the more beautiful things about being in the climate sector is that the goal is to better the planet and better our own, like ourselves, but also the people around us. It's like, okay, how can we spread this message? You need everybody to be part of it. It's not one race to the finish by who gets there first. And I think even in the hardest of times, I've seen community collaboration blossom, and especially like leveraging, what actually do you do that's better than what I do, and maybe we should be able to transfer those that information and resources to like lift each other up versus it being
Are you
something.
working with Materials for the Arts with John Clowder at all?
Yeah, we do. We do. He was also part of our Creative Climate Awards this year, where
Right.
he had an
Yeah, I saw.
installation. We very much utilized MFTA for our own projects that we've done, and visited the spaces and invited others who are guests who may have not access, but to be able to access it through the HII, and
Yeah.
making sure artists and organizations are aware of what they do.
What you said earlier is very concerning, that people are not connected. And I think we live in a society, especially under the current administration and their issues with environmental health, and the new leader of the EPA, as opposed to Michael Regan, who was under the Biden administration, and the destruction of the Inflation Reduction Act funding, which was just the amount of money that went into the environment was staggering. We've never seen anything like it. And now that that's all gone, what is your concern about how this administration is attacking the environment? Anyone can answer.
It's devastating. It's incredibly ignorant, and we all have to work very hard on pushing back and saying we won't take this because there isn't any way to recover what they are damaging, and we were doing a great deal in so many sectors. So we have to not lose heart. We have to work together and push, and the more community art things we do, I think the more we can raise these questions without complete depression and work towards some solutions and political acts that are also beautiful.
Right. Have you seen any increases in devastation from this assault against the environmental world in communities of color? And sort of environmental racism, have you seen an increase in that at all?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of displacement, like climate refugees, people who are being kind of devastated by losing their homes through flooding, especially delayed in receiving emergency funding, like what we saw in Texas. I think it's just very obvious at this point, and I feel like the emergency, like the level of emergency that we need is not being met, and it's just, I think, kind of like what you were saying earlier about having climate artists and activists involved. I think art is a great way to disrupt. I think there's this feeling of like, I guess this is the new normal, and feeling like you just have to accept it. But I think kind of standing up and showing that like, no, like we have a voice, and we're going to disrupt this space, and we're not going to let anyone just walk in and kind of take over the government and change the rules to happen. So I feel like voices, individual and groups and communities and organizations need to come together and kind of amplify their voices, and really, I think right now community is more important than ever.
Right. Do you see that in Bridgeport at all? Do you think there's some kind of increase, or maybe not so much an increase, but do you see a community like Bridgeport concerned about the impact of climate change?
Well, yeah, I mean, we were just talking about the smokestack that's coming down. We know that was in a neighborhood that the people that lived around it were affected more by it, right, with asthma and things like that. And we have the extreme, more flooding than we've had in the past. And unfortunately, in our city, there's a sewer system that isn't really adequate anymore, and so that does affect people in lower income communities.
And anything on your end that you're seeing in
Well,
terms of
I decided I
an
had to
assault?
go out of my art groups, and so I've been working, starting to work with React, with Peggy Shepard, and they are so amazing. So I just want to learn from them and then jump in when I can do more. And then I am getting a lot of information from Bill McKibben's Third Act, and that's helpful to just keep up on some of this, some of the movements going on.
Thank you. So we're going to wrap this up in a couple of minutes, and I'd like for each of you to share with me and the audience about a positive thing that we can all do on a daily basis to further this along and make the world a better place.
Yeah, I would say have those conversations that are tough. I feel like it's easy to feel like, oh, well, I don't want to be the Debbie Downer to talk about climate change or bring up this issue. But even if it's one positive, like, oh, here's an alternative that I use that I want to share with individuals and friends or family, I think it's good to just have the conversation around like, oh, what do you think about what's happening? And even if they disagree, just listening and trying to understand versus kind of feeling like, oh, you have to be like you have to disagree and there has to be some, an argument. I think conversation's the first step and sharing ideas.
Okay.
You know,
Suzanne?
when we go into the schools and we do a project and we're working with like recycled materials or whatever, whenever we do a PowerPoint, we show the students the options, the things that they can do to reduce, reuse, recycle. Talk to them about, getting some kind of a water bottle that they can use over and over again. And so, just we actually show them pictures of these things that you can do. So I think that's important. And, holidays, when they come, I give all that great Pyrex stuff that you find, in the vintage shops. Those are my gifts to people because I feel that way maybe they won't use, plastic wrap and aluminum foil and things like that.
Excellent.
And
So we're going to wrap it up. You have 30 seconds to close us out.
Okay. I suggest everybody get into forests and trees because they are able to clean everything that is now completely messed up. And The Call of the Forest is a fabulous movie on Netflix by Beresford Kroeger.
That's a beautiful way to end this conversation. Thank you all for sharing your expertise and your passion for what's happening to our world. I'm Daniel Lanzilotta, guest host for Corinne's Picks, and thank you for being here tonight. We'll see you next time.